Boom, shakalaka boom. It's Monday on the Free Range Human Show of Choice, your daily dose of reality radio. It starts right now. This is the Clay Edwards Show. I am, of course, Clay Edwards. We are live here on 103.9 FM WYAB in the ClayEdwardsShow.com studios. Be sure to check out the website. You can buy the FAFO shirts there. Just click merch or swag or shirts or whatever the tab says at the top that means that. You can also listen to the 5 most recent podcasts. They're all, they auto-update there on the home screen. And, of course, this has all the links to social, the podcast apps, just, kind of a one-stop shop for all things Clay Edwards Show related, instead of having to consolidate. I like consolidation. So it's all consolidated right there on the website and all that fun stuff. Here in the studio with me this morning on a Monday, because we didn't get a full 2 hours Friday to recap this debate shenanigans, so we're going to do it today. But we had an emergency 1 hour show in the 9 to 10 o'clock hour because Entergy had a power outage out here in Florida. So I got Shaun Yurtkuran back here in the studio with me. It's going to be an abbreviated week as well, so this will probably be the only day Shaun's on here till next week. Shaun, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How's it going?
It's good, man. It's good. It's not 4,000 degrees yet, but it's getting there.
It was hot when I walked out this morning.
Yeah.
Y'all stay tuned. Coming up around 7:35 for the second half of the first hour, we'll have Russ Latino, Magnolia Tribune, on the line to discuss some of this debate stuff, and not just so much the debate, but what's next and what is the legal path forward as well, as far as potentially getting a new candidate on the ballot in some of these states. There's a little bit of misinformation, I guess, out there, a little confused information on would they even be allowed to be on the ballot in some states this late in the game. So we're going to dive into all that. I think you're going to get the most riveting post-debate coverage and kind of what's moving forward coverage than anywhere. All right, Mazda Jackson phone line, 601-879-0002. Guns and Gear text line, 769-241-1944. Real quick, I want to thank everybody that came out there to Old Tavern on George Street Friday for the first FAFO lunch. Appreciate Kim Wade coming and speaking. We had 45 people show up for that event, so that's strong. That's strong. We're going to do it again. Location to be announced the last Friday of July. We'll keep you posted. That's kind of the running idea right now. We'll do these luncheons the last Friday of July. Everybody else does theirs like the first week of the month. I figure we'll hit it on a Friday. And, that way if you want to crack a cold one, it's Friday. You can. We ain't judging. I did.
So did I.
Shaun did.
Yeah. First time back in George Street in forever. Had to.
I know. It was like, well, maybe the last time. You never know. Yeah. So I wanted to sit at the bar and drink a cold beer. I even drank a local craft from over there in Vicksburg, a Mississippi Queen. What's that brewery over there called?
Key City?
Key City, yes.
Key City, yeah.
Good beer.
It's great. The brewery's fantastic, too. If anybody's not been out there, it's pretty amazing.
Man, speaking of Vicksburg, real quick, I did not know this, but I saw a picture floating around on Facebook over the weekend. The biscuit company has closed.
Oh, really?
And we were just over there last summer.
Huh.
Yeah, and it was. I originally saw the picture floating around in one of these haunted Mississippi groups, and it was like the most eerie looking, spooky, like the old place had been shut down for 50 years. I was like, man, why does that place look familiar? And it was one of them weird groups where if you name the location, they'll delete your posts.
Okay.
That's just stupid. Anyway, it was somebody else that shared it, and I was like, hey, is that Biscuit Company? Because I've only been in there 2 or 3 times over the years. So
yeah.
Without people in there, it looked a little weird. But, yeah, apparently it closed back in April.
Oh.
A lot of people like to prop that mayor over there up, that George Flash, but he's such a great mayor because he met with Trump.
Yeah.
And Chokwe didn't. So, oh, man, George Flash, he really did the right thing. He went and met with Trump. I mean, I don't want to say he didn't do the right thing because I agree. Meeting with the president when you're a small town is the right thing to do and you have the opportunity. You're an idiot if you don't do it.
Sure.
But I don't think it makes him a good mayor. And I think you're seeing stuff shut down and high crime and a lot of shenanigans in Vicksburg that would say that he's probably not a really good mayor.
Vicksburg it's a tough town, you know. I mean, like if they lost the casinos, it'd just be a dying town at that point, right? I mean, that's kind of what they were fighting about, the whole Jackson casino thing that we were seeing. Because if that goes, the whole town kind of goes.
But it would suit me fine.
Yeah,
you know, like I don't think other communities should be sacrificing their economic development to prop Vicksburg up or any other town.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, especially, you know, if you're trying to be Jackson-centric, I was all for the casino as well.
Yeah.
I did see another mayor, though, that met with a Democratic official. I saw this just this morning. Phil Fisher in Clinton was meeting with Pete Buttigieg this weekend, I think it was. I saw that on the news. And I thought, hey, look, that's great. He might get some more stuff for Clinton. I mean, that's the way this is supposed to work.
It is. It is. Like when Buttigieg came to town a couple of weeks ago, I mean, I made a little video being a little sarcastic, but I do appreciate the federal funds and the federal people being on ground and, you know, getting some stuff done.
Yeah.
I kind of chuckled at all of his progressive words that they have to squeeze into. Infrastructure is equality. I mean,
what is it?
It was like infrastructure is equality.
Oh,
equality is infrastructure. That kind of stuff.
Okay, that's weird.
I'm like, can we just pave the damn road and it not have to be about gays and blacks and this and that and the other? Just pave the road. Put up the street lights. Whatever it is you're going to do.
Fix the street lights.
Yes. Well, they're doing two different kinds. They're putting like street lamps.
Okay.
And then, but what they don't know that they're talking about, I can't believe this place doesn't have street lights. No, meth heads stole copper.
Yeah, that's what happened.
They're street lights. Mm-hmm. They're not telling you the whole story.
Right.
Here, meth heads and copper thieves. See, okay, so white meth heads steal copper.
Oh, this is the way it works?
Yeah, I'm going to explain it. There's two different kinds of copper thieves.
Okay.
There's white meth heads
that
steal them. There's black people that steal it too. They just don't typically do meth. They're just old hustlers out there, you know,
stealing the copper.
Yeah, so your old can man grandpa, kind of Fred Sanford type dude.
The can man is what I always think of when I think the minute you say stealing copper.
Like you can go to the can man and look at the two very diverse groups of people that are there. It's a really older black dude, really skinny, drives the old 1970s Ford long bed pickup truck with all the stuff hanging out the back of it.
Yeah.
He's been working all day. And then you've got the white meth heads with their copper and catalytic converters. I guess somehow I'm saying the black dude's the better version of this story, even though he stole copper too. You know, but there's two distinct copper thieves in Jackson.
And they're all at the can man.
It just seems like such an easy fix to outlaw the resale of copper.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do. I mean, I know it's a valuable thing. There's got to be a better way than what we're doing. And definitely catalytic converters.
Yeah. Is there be a way to check where that came from? I guess you can't. I don't know how you do that. Like, where'd you get that copper? You know, I just had it at my house.
You see,
it's just in my house.
Did you see in California that apparently catalytic converter theft is on the rise there, along with everything else?
Yeah.
Yeah. So who do you think the California legislature is blaming the catalytic converters on? Who do you think they're pointing the finger at?
I'm gonna guess something like poverty or whatever, like some grandiose statement like that, I would assume.
No. Actually, they're blaming Toyota.
Oh,
for their catalytic converters being easy to steal.
Really?
Yeah, they said they're too low to the ground. They could just slide under there, cut them off.
Oh, they made them too easy to steal.
I mean, we're talking about a catalytic converter, not a Kia here.
Yeah, I don't know. Mine might have been out on my FJ forever. I just I'm not replacing them because why would I do that?
I would just cut around and just cut them off. And
I thought about doing that too. I just might as well, but I don't know how to do that because I don't know.
I know a place, but it's illegal.
Yeah, I know it's illegal. That's why I haven't done it. But I remember I took it to the Toyota guy about 5 years ago, and they're like, "There's no reason to replace these. Why would you do that?"
Yeah, they're stupid anyway.
Yeah. I never did. Now just my check engine light is on forever though. Even I got one of those code clearers.
Yeah.
And it goes like 50 miles and just turns back on. So I just finished it. I just don't care.
No, I used to just put a picture of my girlfriend or like black electric tape over check engine lights.
Yeah.
Or my daughter or whoever, But I definitely, I'm done running the scanner to make lights go away.
Yeah, for 50 miles, right? It's not even worth it.
All right, so we'll have Russ Latino coming up about 7:35. Shaun, we got a couple of minutes here.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of room to digest what happened over the weekend.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know you have been main veining it.
I have just it's so fascinating. I forget about the debate, just the response and the mind effing, as I call it, that's going on.
Gaslighting.
Yeah, it's just amazing. It's like nobody saw this, and I love my favorite term from the Biden's campaign to other Democrats. It's not even to the public. It's stop the bedwetting from the media. The bedwetting, like nobody saw that. I mean, nobody's bedwetting. Everybody watched it. Everybody watched it and saw what happened.
It was, look, man. You know, we've used the term to describe Democrats over the last few years as NPC bots, non-playable characters.
I know an NPC. I played enough games.
Thank you. And well, maybe the people outside there don't.
Yeah.
Maybe the listeners weren't sure. So, you know, it's non-playable characters. They're just background fodder. You can't actually play them in the games. It's the people on the streets in GTA 5. Stuff like that, trying not to die,
right?
And we've commonly referred to Democrats and the media as NPC bots. And I thought what happened after the debate Thursday, and since then, it's like they got their NPC upload. It's like they got their update about halfway through the debate, and by the end of it, they were all on the same marching orders, from MSNBC to CNN to CNBC to all of them. It was just, this is it. Biden's got to go. It's sad. I love that man. Van Jones.
Crying. He loves to cry.
Yes, Van Jones loves to cry. He's a little bitch. Oops.
Whoops. FCC.
He is, man. I mean, he is not a man's man.
Man, I figured you'd like him after he said, "This is the moment Donald Trump became president." I figured, you remember that one?
I mean, I remember, but I've been saying Donald Trump's going to be president for years.
No, I said it became like he gave this speech and Van Jones was like complimenting him, and all the Democrats got mad at him. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah, I do, but I still don't like him. I mean, first off, when he tells me I love that man, talking about Joe Biden, like, man, I was talking to somebody over the weekend, and he just talking about gaslighting and stuff, and it's a black buddy of mine, and I was having dinner with him Friday night, and I was like, you know, we were talking about the Barbie Bassett stuff and the fashizzle nonsense. And I said, you know what's funny? I said, have you ever seen the video or heard the video of Joe Biden dropping the N-word?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I hadn't. I said, well, because context matters. And we've completely forgotten that context matters as long as it's our side that benefits from the outrage, whoever it is, you know?
Right.
I said, so they fired Barbie and for talking about fashizzle when it was a Snoop Dogg segment.
Yeah.
I said, well, if the same people that got all upset about that are also the same people that voted for Joe Biden. I said, I just want to know where the equal outrage is here, because I got a video right here of Joe Biden, you know, talking about we don't need no more N-word big shots or N-word mayors. Now, granted, he's just reading something.
Right, yeah.
But so was Barbie.
Yeah, I mean, Barbie was saying a phrase that we've all been conditioned to say since the 90s when this has been marketed. You know, Snoop Dogg marketed it. It's not like it was meant in any racist. You know, it was so insane, I thought.
Yeah.
It was the stupidest thing.
Well, and I'm just making this point because we've been being gaslit for a while by the media and by Democrats in general. They'll sit there and when they do it, it's okay. When anybody else does it, it's not. And they've been lying their ass off. I got to watch my mouth this morning. Beep.
You know what? To your point, I was thinking about this something on the drive. I was talking to a friend of mine on the way over here. What's so upsetting about, I sent you that article in the Washington Post about the Democrats having that meeting this weekend, you know, that big Zoom call.
Yeah.
And they're like, everybody, you know, hold the line. Everybody, you know, stay course. Let's keep pushing and, you know, and going through November. And we're going to, Biden's our horse and all this stuff. And then, of course, a lot of Democrats are like privately saying, no, this is ridiculous. And what bothers me the most is that, like, you know, for years they've been saying Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. He's not capable of being president. Like, we have to do everything we can to stop it. Well, now when it's flipped and it's obvious that the president of the United States is incapable of functioning, I think the entire country saw that. It's like, let's keep on going. I mean, what about the country for 5 seconds? Like, does anybody give even if you don't like Donald Trump, I'm not saying vote for him. That's not my point. It's just like you have an obvious problem here that now you're saying, well, screw it. But if Trump had acted like that, I think the Democrats would be like, "Oh my God, the Republicans have got to get him off the ticket right now.
100%.
This is not fair." And so this is what bothers me about the hypocrisy. And this doesn't mean I'm not a Democrat. This is just me pointing out, being objective to the situation, which is like, if this were on the other side, you'd be going nuts. You'd be like, "I can't believe Trump can't even get a word out." Like,
I'm glad you brought that up, because I had it in my notes here, bro. I was thinking about this morning on the wing. I would rather, we keep saying, "Oh my God, imagine if Kamala was president." I would rather Kamala be president.
At least it's a responsible decision at this point, I think. Even if you don't like her or her policies or whatever it is, at least she's a functioning human being.
She thinks for herself. I know we can debate that, but she's cognitively there.
My sister, she hates Donald Trump, and she's administrator of a home health place, and she called me up yesterday. She said, I finally watched the debate on YouTube, and I'm like, "What do you think?" She's like, "Sean, it is irresponsible of Joe Biden to let him do this." I'm like, "I can't believe you're saying this." She's like, he looks like some of my patients. It's and so, I'm listening to her say this, and I'm thinking that the Democrats are now trying to fool everybody. I mean, they're not fooling anybody anymore. They're like, "Okay, well, let's keep on going with this guy that's obviously he's got dementia and he's lost his mind at this point." And we're just supposed to say, "Yeah, sure, okay. Why don't we do that? That's the responsible thing to do." It's total hypocrisy. That's my problem with it.
Let's take a break real quick. We got Shaun Yurtkuran here in the studios with us this morning. The Mazda Jackson phone line, 601-879-0002. Guns and Gear text line, 769-241-1944. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. Hey, guys, this segment is going to be brought to you by Miranda Lambert, coming to Trustmark Park. That's right out there in Pearl. Special guest Jackson Dean this month, just a few weeks away. Well, not this month, next month, July 26th, Trustmark Park. Tickets on sale now at all Ticketmaster outlets, Ticketmaster.com. And I actually, let me see here. There's a little ticket special right now. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. Well, I had to tell y'all what the special is. I thought I had it in this text. It must be in another email. Anyway, we do have a ticket special available for you guys. We'll be giving some tickets away, too. Let me see here. I want to get this. I want to tell you all this real quick while I'm doing this. I don't want to have to circle back. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see here. Ticket specials. Dang. It must be an email. I'll find it and tell it to you. But anyway, circle the date. Miranda Lambert at Trustmark Park. Going to be a big one. Friday, July 26th, right there in Pearl, Mississippi. Shout out to those guys for choosing the Clay Edwards Show to promote this on. We appreciate it. All right, Sean.
Yeah.
Somebody texted in on the Guns and Gear text line and had a really good point. They said, Joe Biden is a clear and present danger to our national security. If a nuke was launched in our direction, he would have about 7 minutes to respond. I don't think he's capable of doing that. And that is maybe not quite as dramatic as that, but that's my thoughts with this too. I think Joe needs to step down now and pass it over to Kamala. And look, I am no Kamala fan, but again, I think that there's such a rivalry between the two factions right there. I don't think her camp likes them. They don't like her. I think she would fire everybody in the White House.
I think so too. I think you would see a lot of that. Yeah.
I don't know what you would get out of it. Like, I think they've been making a fool out of her on purpose. Mm-hmm. Every time they send some of these transvestite nut jobs to the White House and to be escorted around, she's the one that has to do it.
Yeah. That's a good point.
They're kind of emasculating her in a way, trying to make her look dumber than she is. Like, at the end of the day, she's terrible, and she cackles and all this stuff. But if I had to pick one person and my life depended on them making a good decision, Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, I'm ride or die with Kamala.
I think also it reminded me parallel to LBJ. So what I mean by that is this. Kamala was a threat to the presidency because Joe's so old. So she's obviously, seen as like probably the immediate successor, giving Joe one term. So obviously his staff is probably trying to do anything they can to downsize her importance, which they've done successfully. We've seen, just like you pointed out. And Kennedy's staff kind of did that to LBJ because that nomination process was really close in 1960, and he was relegated to really silly duties before JFK was assassinated. It's like and they were actually not thinking of not having him on the ticket in 64. So it was a very similar situation where they didn't like the vice president. That's kind of you're seeing here with Biden and Kamala Harris, and you did with Kennedy and LBJ. So I think, I can totally see that point. I think exactly what they did. So she may come out and, be a stronger president than we would all think. I'm not saying you're going to like her or whatever it is, but she's been typecasted as this, bumbling lunatic,
Yeah, look, I mean, and we can question how she got her job, and she was dead last in the polls, and all that stuff. I mean, she got the job because she's a black woman, well, partially black woman, and that's why she got the job. And she got her other jobs by apparently working it Hawk-Tua style.
Well, I've heard about those Willie Brown things. I think that's true, actually, partially true. But then, of course, she did. I mean, to her credit, she was district attorney of San Francisco, then became attorney general of California, and then became senator of California. She rose up through the ranks. I mean, she really did. And then she becomes vice president, and everybody thinks, wow, this woman is, looks like a lunatic. But prior to that, not everybody thought that. I mean, she may not have been that popular in Democratic primaries, but I don't think she had quite this public perception that she's had since she's been vice president. But I think to your greater point, I mean, would it be appropriate for him to step down? Yeah, I think so. I think that would probably be the best thing to do, to let her take over, considering, just all the reports we saw this weekend, and you and I were discussing this on break. Axios is saying that Biden's close aides has hidden him from the public hidden from the rest of the White House, for the last 3 years. Now, where people don't have any contact with him, where you can only get with the president between 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. So, I mean, he's obviously not functioning as president, and he's been hidden by his own staff. Well, now that the public knows this, now that our enemies know this, that's a real threat, I think. Yeah,
I found an AI photo of Putin and Kim Jong-un at a party, popping bottles and hanging out with hot chicks and stuff.
Right.
I was like, this is them watching the debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a call on the Mazda Jackson phone line. Hey, good morning. You're on there.
Good morning, Clay. It's Scott. How you doing, brother?
Hey, brother. How you doing?
Doing great. I hear you're buying cars these days.
Trying to.
It's tough to be in your line of work right now. It has been for a while. I feel for you. But, hey, everybody needs wheels, though. So, somebody's got to keep it moving. I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Look, what do you say about all this that's been going on? Shaun's on point with a lot of what he's saying. Harris is not a great backup plan. She's already been successfully painted, as he said, a bumbling, cackling idiot. And the thing is, it's there. I mean, she's been painted as that because she's not really great publicly. She's a gaffe machine in her own right. And the problem they're going to have with her is, where has she been? Have you seen any clips of her since the debate or anything? She has just been in hiding for months.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of film on her.
She came out of hiding right after the debate and it was only to battle with Gavin Newsom, basically, to see which one could defend Joe the hardest.
Yeah.
Well, was it in some kind of, I haven't seen it, some kind of big 2020 interview, or was it just a tweet or something?
No, it was on CNN. She did like 6 minutes with CNN, which they say is pretty long.
Yeah, with
Anderson Cooper. Yeah, she had her and Anderson had a basically they came to blows.
They did.
Yeah.
You need to find it. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I need to find it. That's the problem, is you have to go looking for it. It's not really readily available. But, the more we see of her, even in just a little 6 month or 4 month sampling, the more people are going to go, that's not a good plan B at all. They're not going to want that. But here's the thing. This was the same problem with the special prosecutor not charging him with possessing all those documents, which he did as a senator and vice president without any presidential immunity. They said, well, he'll be too sympathetic a figure, and that's why they wouldn't give up the videos to Congress. Merrick Garland's now in contempt. That he'd be too sympathetic. Well, it's your job as a prosecutor to make the case. Yeah, he may look sympathetic now, but we could show video after video when he was vice president and senator, when he was all there. He had his fastball. He was perfectly, capable of understanding what he was doing when he committed these crimes. And you can you can take it easy on sentencing because he's a poor old man now. He doesn't understand what's going on. But as far as guilt goes, that has nothing to do with anything. They were hypocritical then. They're hypocritical now. If he's not capable of running for office right now, just because of that debate performance, then who is the unaccountable person on the staff that's running this country? Because he clearly isn't.
Jill Biden.
I mean, it's a constitutional crisis.
Yeah,
people say it's a shadow government by, Barack Obama, which, I mean, we can debate that all day. Wouldn't surprise me, but it doesn't matter. Point is, Joe's not running it. No one who's accountable is running it. Yeah, I agree with you. Jill is definitely his day-to-day handler. She can't be more than 10 feet away from him.
Hold on. Sean.
I think it'd be a panic if she was.
Scott, Sean's got something he wants to say.
Yeah, Scott, to your point, I think you're right about the sympathetic thing. We've had a history of prosecuting people that have been elderly and committed crimes in the past. And I'm not saying the crimes I'm about to name are not comparison to level of, gravity as Joe's, but like Byron Dilla Beckwith, there's one example, who was really elderly when he was prosecuted, should have been prosecuted. The Nazi war criminals that they found later in life. And I'm not saying Joe did anything like those guys did, but I think you can still prosecute someone based on that past conduct, no matter their age.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. So it makes no sense to say, well, he's too old, or he doesn't know what's going on around him, and yet he's still in office, supposedly running the country, and supposedly running the country to the current standard that we're told the economy's great, jobs are great, the border's great, crime's great, crime is great, the wars in over in the Middle East and in Ukraine are going great. I mean, that's what we keep being told about this presidency. If it's that great, then who cares? Keep them on the ticket and run them. I mean, if it's as great as you say it is, why do you want to change that? It's clearly working. We accepted Bill and Hillary as a team. Everybody knew they were running the presidency together, but she was competent, and so was he. So who cares? I mean, husband and wife teams are accepted in our society today, but technically you can only elect one person president at a time.
Well, I think that, Scott, I got to let you go, bro. I got to take a break to get our next interviewer on. So I appreciate it.
Go ahead. I'll hang up to listen, bro.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't have a problem. We talked about this the other day, Sean. This husband and wife stuff, that's fine. Like, we accept that Bill and Hillary were a combo package.
Sure.
And, I mean, maybe we didn't realize it as much then, but especially through the lens of history, we understand that they were a team.
Yeah.
And, but Hillary really put in the legwork.
Sure.
Dr. Jill Biden ain't really putting in no legwork outside of trying to raise Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I think
kind of being a glorified babysitter.
The example I gave you at the break was Woodrow Wilson, and if people might know this, he had a stroke about 18 months prior to him leaving office, and Edith Wilson, a woman they actually married while he was president because his first wife died, she ran the White House for the last 18 months. And so, I mean, the American people didn't like that either. And that was an issue there. But she'd actually ran the White House, kind of the situation that Jill Biden is in now, it seems.
Yep. All right, sorry, I'm just I'm pushing Russ to the top of the 8 o'clock hour.
Gotcha. But yeah, I think that you can see that with the parallels. So it's been happened, about 100 years ago. This had happened where we had just exited World War I, and Woodrow Wilson had a stroke. Edith Wilson became the de facto president and ran the White House, because Wilson was actually going to run for a third term, but due to his health condition, obviously he couldn't, and he died around the age of 64, right a few years after he left the White House. But so there's precedent where this has happened before, and I think what you're seeing is, and everything I'm reading, is that Jill Biden actually is the de facto president. Like, it's Jill Biden and a few close advisors that are actually, and I did a pretty deep dive into this weekend, and seems to be what it is.
Hold that thought. Let's take our break
Gotcha.
real quick. We'll be right back. We're going to pick back up at where Sean left off right there. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show here live on WYAB. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Guns and Gear. Can't get over there today. They're closed on Mondays, but they're open Tuesday through Saturday. Get over there, Highway 51 North, Gluckstadt, Mississippi, for all of your gun and ammo needs. But they're way more than just a gun and ammo store. I don't know what else you could need possibly, but they got it. All your accessories, gunsmithing, and Cerakoting needs, they got you taken care of. Shop them online, 24/7, 365, gunsandgearms.com. Or just swing by, check them out in person right there, Yandell Road on 51 North. That's Guns in Gear, proud sponsor of our Guns in Gear text line. I had to run down to the bottom of the stairs and unlock the door. I am gassed, son. That is
gotta do some cardio, bro.
I had a bad workout week last week. I think I worked out Monday and Tuesday and kind of mailed it in the rest of the week.
Is that what it was? Man, it was so hot this weekend too. God, it's supposed to be even hotter today, I think. And I do that rucking thing where I throw all these weights in backpack, and I do that every day for like 6 miles. And man, I went yesterday about 1 in the afternoon, which was stupid. I felt like I was melting, like I was in Wizard of Oz or something. It's horrible.
All right, pick up where you left off.
Where were we? We were talking about national security concerns with Joe Biden. Yeah,
and I guess some kind of ghost team running his camp.
Yeah, I mean, so Axios had made a report over the weekend that stated that his close advisors and Joe Biden have been shielding him from other people in the White House, not just the public, but the White House for basically the last 3.5 years. And so you can only visit with the president between like 10 and 4. That's kind of like his time frame. And so, like, a lot of people that actually work in the West Wing didn't know the extent of this, how bad this was, because he's been kept under wraps. There was an incident apparently in some speech he gave in the Rose Garden a few months ago, and I can't remember which one it was, but I read it yesterday, that they immediately took him into the map room, which is in the West Wing, and they, like, pushed everybody out, and I guess he had some sort of, like, heat stroke or imbalance, but they played it off like he was just wanted to take some rest, and he just had some episode that, now what's going on is everybody's starting to leak stuff because everybody's seen what happened on Thursday night. So now, like, the truth is starting to come out.
Well, you had to wonder how long it was going to take. Because we've been seeing this. They called it deep fakes. Told us we were conspiracy theorists. Don't believe our lying eyes. Joe's fine. Joe's sharp. The other thing that really makes me mad, if you go back and you can look at Mika and that whole bunch, Krasinski and Morning Joe, who allegedly killed his assistant. I don't know, but you can look at all them. You can look at all the mainstream media last week when this whole deep fake controversy came out, and they tell us Joe's sharper than he's ever been. This is the best version of Joe Biden. And then flip the switch. Joe's got to go. The same bunch. It is phenomenal to watch this happen in real time.
Russ Latino's actually got an article up today just about that. He'll be in a minute. Let him discuss that. But it kind of addresses all of that, which I think is pretty interesting. But as your Joe Scarborough thing, that's my favorite part of this whole thing. Because, years ago, this is coming full circle is what I mean, and I'll explain it. So I used to love Morning Joe like 10, 15 years ago. It was actually a great program. And Scarborough was actually like still conservative. Mika was liberal, and it really came across well. Then, of course, it started sliding to where they started hooking up, and then Scarborough became a liberal or whatever. And around 2014, 2015, especially once Trump announced, Mika and Joe and Trump were friends. And Trump would just call in to Morning Joe every day. And they'd be like, I remember watching it because I'd watch it every day then. And Joe would be like, oh, we got Donald Trump on the phone. Let's see what Donald's got to say. And because they were all buddies. And, they'd try to get Hillary, and Hillary would never call in. But Donald would literally call in every day, and they'd have a discussion with him. And then, of course, that shifted to where now we got to start hating him towards the end of 15, early 16. They went that route. But prior to that, if you ever watch it, like it was like their friend Donald was calling in. And so then they spent the next all these years hating on him, right? And now they've been, talking about how great Joe Biden is and how healthy he is and all that stuff. And then immediately the next day, Friday morning, Joe Scarborough is like, well, Joe Biden, doesn't need to run again. I mean, it's like everything is completely changed now.
I want to know who the person is that sends the memo out.
Yeah.
Where does the buck stop and start? Who is that person that's running this country?
Yeah.
That's what I'm waiting to leak out.
You'd also want to, Clay, I went to a roundtable with at University of Alabama with Joe Scarborough and like 10 other people back in 2014 before Donald announced. This is how funny we related to how he was friends with Trump, and this is a year before Trump announced. And we're sitting there, and Scarborough made a statement that I'll never forget. He said that Europe has been on a vacation from history since World War II, which is one of the truest things I'd ever heard.
Sure.
A year later, Trump says basically the same thing about NATO and all this stuff, and why are we paying for all this stuff and they're not paying. And and then Scarborough then he hits all that back, and I'm like, I was at a round table with you talking about this, and you made a statement. Actually, like I still got a Facebook post I made back then when he said it, because I thought the statement was so profound, and true. and that Europe was able to build this utopia society based on our backs and our money, because we provided the defense for them, and then Trump starts going with that, and you're like, "Now this is wrong." Now, like, but I was there when you said it. I mean, I hate politics sometimes.
I know, man. It's like, can we not just, because Trump is really, has some liberal views and stuff. He really is probably the most middle of the road president we've ever had. But he's so polarizing that people they can't allow themselves to look at it that way. Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about Joe Biden. We got a couple of minutes here before the break.
Yeah.
I do want to circle back to the debate on one thing, Trump related. Finally, I'm going to let Biden suck all the oxygen out of the room. Man, all right, look, my stance on abortion. I'm a zero. I get it. It ain't popular, but I don't think there's gray area.
You're not like health of the mother, rape, incest exceptions, or?
I mean, no. I mean, you got to say no. It's a hard, difficult line, but I'm not going to argue God's will.
Okay.
But removing that out and just looking at this from a political perspective, how you win elections, I thought Trump hit a home run on the abortion topic. Mm-hmm. They keep trying to pin him on the abortion ban being Trump's. I'm like, hell yeah, it is. We did that. Yeah. Trump kind of pushes back on that a little bit, saying he will not try to ban the morning after pills or abortion pills and stuff like that.
And he won't sign a federal ban, he said.
Right, and that he is for the exceptions, the rape and incest exceptions and stuff.
He said to leave it to the states. He doesn't believe a federal ban is appropriate.
Yep. Now, Joe tried to say he was a liar about this, saying that everybody wanted it to go back to the states. What are your thoughts on that? Because I had never really heard that argument until, Roe got overturned. Did people want it to go back to the states? I know we did. I know the states that wanted to outlaw it wanted it back. But what about states that wanted to keep it?
No, I think he's partially right. Not 100% right. I think, if you're a conservative and you believed that was a states' right issue, then you did want it to go back to the states, and you believe that Roe was wrongfully decided back in 73 or 74, then so that group, people did want it to go back to the states, and also there's some people that are pro-choice like myself that actually believe that Roe was wrongfully decided, that actually was a state right issue. When you just from a constitutional perspective is kind of how I look at it. Not that I. Not pro-choice, and believe that was probably the appropriate remedy. But then, of course, there's a contingent, obviously a lot of people that think Roe was rightfully decided and that wanted it to remain enshrined in the Constitution.
So it seems like the most staunch advocates, opponents, not advocates, of it being overturned are pro-choice people in red states.
Yeah, right. I think you had pro-choice people wanted to remain in place, and then conservatives wanted it to become a states' right issue. I think so. It's half and half, I would say.
Yeah, I will say this: as pro-life as I am, I do not think we need to be charging mothers who cross state lines to get an abortion with murder. I think that is just that's a line too far, and you're not going to. I don't know. Well, that is a step too far.
Well, also, I think, the federal ban thing kind of defeats the whole states' right issue, too. Yeah. Where if you're a conservative and you believe that Roe was wrongfully decided and it's a states' right issue, then why do you now think the federal government has power to ban it nationwide? Yeah. So I think that's a contradiction.
That's a great point. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Got about 30 seconds to the top of the hour break here. This has been the Clay Edwards Show with Shaun Yurtkuran here on a Monday morning to get your week started off with a bang. When we come back, we will have Russ Latino in the first segment. And we're going to really continue to peel this onion back on this debate stuff and what the Democrats do moving forward. We'll be right back. Boom, shaka, laka, boom. You've tuned back into the Free Range Human Show of Choice, your daily dose of reality radio. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Pure Air Consultants. Seems mighty timely, considering how hot it is outside. You ever wonder why your AC has stopped working? Well, the common reasons for this issue include things like a flip switch. Well, you can only hope it's a flip switch. A dirty condenser, an improperly sized unit, an old unit, and a malfunctioning thermostat. For over 40 years, Pure Air Consultants has been delivering exceptional cooling systems to Central Mississippi And they want to offer you a rare gift, a free labor warranty for 5 years. New construction builds, thermostat installation, and more available. Financing is also available. Pure Air Consultants also specializes in air duct cleaning, air duct sealing, and dry vent cleaning. Make sure the air you breathe is as clean and fresh as possible. Contact them today at mypureairconsultants.com. Ream, a new degree of comfort. Shaun, we were talking during the break, and Russ will be here any minute now. We'll kind of hold off on this next batch of stuff till he gets here. But we were talking during the break and kind of joked around talking about my intro, and it says "Battle for the Soul of America." Mm-hmm. I mean, it really feels like that's where we're at in this whole thing. It is a battle for the soul of America, and I don't just mean left versus right. I just mean there's a lot of factors that play here.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of people are just itching for something that resembles normalcy.
You know, I was watching, funny you bring that up, I was watching a documentary on Eisenhower and Roosevelt during World War II. It was like
of course you were.
I know, I'm a geek, everybody knows that. I'm just ridiculous. And when I'm not drinking, I'm watching documentaries. And or drinking and watching documentaries sometimes.
That's the best way.
Yeah. And I thought about it, like, you know, these guys, here's Roosevelt was a Democrat, Eisenhower was Republican, and they did this war to save basically the world. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, that sounds, hyperbolic, but it really was. And I wonder if they're looking down and just like, what the heck or did these folks do with what we did? I just kept thinking about that. Like, you got a guy who's a mentally, incapable in president, and then the other candidate is talking about, well, I didn't have sex with a porn star during a presidential debate. I'm like, this is the history that they left us, that legacy, I mean,
and then the golf game argument.
Thank you. The golf game argument. I'm like, this is what, this is what it's come to, like, at this point. I just kept thinking about that. And that wasn't from a left-right perspective. It was just a American kind of like, look at what we built one of the greatest nations in the world, in world history, and then now it's devolved into this kind of mess. So it's kind of depressing, I guess.
It is. I sent you an email this morning, not an email, a text. It came through on Fox News, this little app, and it's the part where you have to actually put your email address in to sign up to read the rest of the story. So I fell on the sword for us, and it says after Biden's disastrous debate, campaign email supporters on how to defend him.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Bedwetting brigade. I guess you did bring this up.
Yeah.
But it says the Biden campaign sent out an email to supporters detailing how they can respond to their friends who are critical of President Joe Biden's debate performance. I'll read the paragraph.
Sure.
If you're like me, you're getting lots of texts and calls from folks about the state of the race after Thursday's reads the email. Maybe it was your panicked aunt, your MAGA uncle, or some self-important podcasters. It's a tough position to be in, so I thought it might be helpful to send you a few responses. And I guess I didn't save the responses, but neither here nor there.
Do you want to make up what the responses could be?
That's probably. Oh, Joe has a cold. Let me tell you something.
That was the best they could come up with.
I sent this to our private text group during the show, during the debate. It was a show. 51 million people watched that thing, by the way.
Yeah, 51 million.
51 million. That's huge. That's Super Bowl numbers.
And how many people saw the clips after?
Oh,
I
billions,
mean, it's just,
billions. But I sent you this during the first 30 seconds of the debate there. I said, man, when Joe kind of went on that terrible 30, 40-second run there where he just eyes wide open, no blinking, voice was raspy. I'm telling you, as somebody who's done white powder before, he has some drainage going on.
Yeah.
That was not from a cold. He did not have a cold. He had some type of amphetamine drainage. And I'm not saying it's of the crystal meth category, but it may very well have been of the Adderall category. I went back yesterday while I was cleaning the house, and I listened to Dr. Drew and Salty Cracker. Everybody knows who Dr. Drew is. He used to be on Loveline and stuff back in the day.
Yeah, I remember exactly who he is. Yeah.
He's actually a real doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to Dr. Drew and Salty Cracker, and they did a show the day of the debate, kind of predicting some stuff. And the conversation came up about Joe, about them basically taking Joe into the bunker for a week before bringing it out and trying to tweak the drug combination. It's like what works, what doesn't.
Testing them out like a Nazi bunker when they were testing.
Yeah, like, okay, all right, now let's test these drugs with how long he can stay up and stay mentally acute. And maybe some of it was it hit him too hard early.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe some of it, he got that head rush early and kind of spent the rest of it coming back down. But the problem, like with anything other than say like a time released Adderall, like Sean, you probably know what I'm
like a Vyvanse,
or just anything. If you get into the illegal substances like coke, cocaine, and amphetamines, it's a quick high.
Yeah, it's not a 90-minute high.
It's not a 90-minute high. No. Maybe meth. If maybe meth, but they've got him on some kind of cocktail. I mean, I don't think we can argue that. I'm not saying it's illegal. I'm just saying they got him on some kind of
something. I mean,
some kind of cocktail.
Well, Jon Stewart actually made a joke about this weekend, and he said if the right wing media has been talking about they pumped him up with all this stuff. He's like, well, if they did, I don't want any of that stuff because it obviously didn't work.
I tell you what, I don't know if they may not have had him pumped up with anything during the debate, but that next day at that rally in North Carolina,
he looked good. Then he actually did.
He was pumped up on something. There, Russ, your headphones work?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're live. We got Russ Latino, Magnolia Tribune, sitting in with us. Good morning, Russ. Thanks for stepping in.
Good morning. Sorry about the confusion this morning.
Oh, no. Well, we ended up with a couple good calls this morning, and I hate cutting people off, and it's like, well, we'll just Russ volunteered to come in a little later, so all good to us.
Yep.
We were just in here talking about the potential of Biden being kind of hammered up a little bit on some medications, a little Molotov cocktail of sorts to get through the debate, and I don't know that it didn't work. It was kind of what we were getting at. But then the next day, it was either his body double or they got the concoction to working right because he was on fire at that rally the next day.
Or another option, right? If he's got dementia, there's something called sundowning that occurs with dementia where you're only good essentially during the day. And the later it gets, your faculties decline. And so that's another option. And I think his campaign even came out and said
they did.
He's good between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Right, they did say that, yeah.
That's it. Well,
which is great if you only need a president for 6 hours a day.
That was the Axios report that came out this weekend that talked about his close aides have been hiding him from the rest of the West Wing pretty much since day one. And that leak. You know how things start leaking when bad stuff happens. And so now we know. I'm glad we all know that. I was I don't know if you listened earlier, but I was comparing this to you remember Woodrow Wilson's wife, Edith, actually ran the White House for the last 18 months of the Wilson.
Because he had a stroke, right?
He had a stroke, correct. And I think what I kind of discovered, and I think we all probably have this over the course of the weekend, is that Jill Biden seems to be the one that's been running the White House. I did not know that. I always assumed it was the aides, but there's stories about her that have been coming out, that seem that she's actually kind of the de facto president at this point.
I think they've got a very small circle, is what the reporting that I've seen. Ron Klain and Jill and a couple of others that really have sort of protected him from outside the outside world.
What's the other lady? Ann something? I forget her name.
I know exactly. Anita something, I believe. Yeah. But yeah, she's actually one that's getting thrown under the bus right now.
I read that too. Yeah. I read that too.
Russ, do you think that they're intentionally trying to make Kamala look like a bumbling idiot?
I don't know. I think Kamala in some ways would be the natural successor for lots of reasons. But I also think that there are probably some Democratic power brokers that don't view her as the ideal matchup against Trump.
Well, it feels like the Biden camp has kind of sabotaged her a little bit to put America and the party in this position of, well, would we rather have Joe or would we rather have Kamala? And based on how bad she's looked, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I don't think she's that. I think she's bad, but we're just sitting here having a conversation in hour one. Yeah. I would rather have a bad Kamala with her faculties in place than a bad Joe Biden without his faculties in place.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you've got the Biden campaign sending out an email that includes polling of all these other Democratic candidates.
Yeah,
Have you guys talked about that?
No.
Not yet. We've not hit that.
So,
but yes, I saw that.
so that's a very odd sort of defensive move for someone who is the nominee to essentially be trying to remind people, hey, look, I do better than these other folks. To me, that conveys real weakness.
It was Whitmer, Newsom, and somebody else. I can't remember. Like they were both like +4, +5.
Yeah.
Trump +4, +5. Trump.
Yeah, no, and I think they had several. I mean, I think it was like 6 or 7 different candidates that were on that list. But yeah, I mean, the goal of that, I guess, is to show donors that, hey, I actually still am the best performing. But it's a very odd move for somebody who is the nominee to have to point that out.
Yeah, it really is. Like I said, it just feels like they've intentionally put us in this position or put themselves in a position where people are like, well, I still would rather have Joe than Kamala. And they've almost just kind of put her out to pasture. Sean and I were talking last night on the phone or yesterday on the phone, and he's like, well, maybe we kind of went back to how do you step over the black lady as a Democrat Party when you pushed color, diversity, all this stuff for so long. And then all these candidates they're talking about as potential replacements are all white people. And he's like, well, the Supreme Court thing. I said, I don't think you got to give her the Supreme Court. I don't think you got to do anything. Just let her flail out and go away.
Well, and of course, the way that this would go down is that, one, Biden's got to step down.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible for them to remove him. He'd literally have to decide not to be there. And then you'd effectively get a vote at the convention on these candidates. And I guess really before the convention, you'd start to see some votes on these candidates from the delegates. And so it wouldn't necessarily be power brokers replacing Kamala. It'd be all the delegates from across the country making a decision on who they want to represent them. And I think for all intents and purposes, what you could do, let's say if Gavin Newsom, for some reason, became the guy with his nice coiffed hair and white teeth, that he could pick someone who sort of also checks some boxes around diversity. And so it's not impossible to think that they couldn't get around her.
Yeah, I was talking about in the first hour. I think that because Clay kind of brought up a point about why the public has kind of seen Kamala Harris as this weak candidate, for whatever reasons there are that she's, and it reminded me of kind of what the Kennedys did to LBJ initially, where they kind of like boxed him out of the administration because they felt that he had done things, to them during the convention that they did not like, and that he was a powerful possible contender, obviously for the presidency. And even though he was going to run, they wanted to freeze him out, and for maybe a potential Bobby Kennedy run later down the line. I felt like with Kamala, the reason the Biden camp was doing that is because they knew that he might only be a 4-year president. And so they didn't want to make her look stronger than she could, that she possibly could, because that might give cause for her to be the nominee this year instead of him when they decided to run. And that may be a reason we're seeing the public sees her as being so weak.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I think it's also possible that Joe Biden just doesn't like Kamala Harris.
Could be that too.
Because, I mean, you think about the debates in 2020, the Democratic primary debates in 2020, Kamala Harris all but called Joe Biden a racist and did it multiple times, and really lit into him. And so at some level, when you're picking a vice president, you're not necessarily picking your best friend. You're picking someone that you think compliments you. You don't necessarily have to like that person. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some personality conflict there as well.
Well, LBJ had actually handed out pamphlets at the 60 convention that said Kennedy had Addison's disease. So there was animosity between those camps as well.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have been holding grudges for the last 5 years, people that call me a racist. So I get it.
Kamikaze, where you at?
Yeah, multiple. There's people that I was friends with that started calling me a racist when I started speaking my mind, and, we ain't friends no more.
I think
Kamala, the nation ain't going to be my vice president.
You're not going to have Kamikaze on the ticket?
No.
I think Kamala, didn't she talk about busing when she was a little girl, but that she was too young for that? That's what I remember.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the avenues of attack on Biden, was that he had been supportive, or I guess had opposed busing, at least from a federal standpoint. Look, I think for all intents and purposes, it's going to be difficult for them to replace Biden. And I have been a believer for the last year that it would eventually happen, because I just saw his faculties declining. I'm of the mindset increasingly now that it looks like he's not willing to step down, and if he's not willing to step down, then we're having an academic conversation. The problem, of course, for him is people are not going to forget Thursday night.
No.
And Trump has there's no reason for Trump to do a second debate.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, unless you just think that the performance is going to be equally as bad and remind people closer to the election. But, I think if I were in his shoes, my mindset would be, he's already been exposed. I'm not going to give him a chance to improve.
Yeah. Even though I think if you were betting, you could bet that Biden would have another bad performance. It's like 90 minutes is a long time after the sundown time to be exposed. But I'm with you. I just don't see the upside to Trump doing another one for that very purpose.
I told Clay the reason I agree with that, it's my Simpsons example. I don't know if y'all remember this old Simpsons episode where Bart and Homer are playing this boxing video game, and Bart is constantly beating him at the game. And Homer goes to an arcade, he trains with this young guy, teaches him to be really good at this game. Then they play another game, and Homer starts beating Bart. And in the middle of the game, the electricity goes out, and Bart says, I resign as champion. See, I think it's kind of the Trump strategy here. Yeah. Don't have the debate because you've already there's you don't want to give Biden that chance to get better. Not that saying that he would, but why give that chance?
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Russ Latino's got a new thing up on the website this morning, new piece on Magnolia Tribune about the media kind of propping Joe up. And this is something I've been on for a while. I definitely want to get Russ's take on it. This is the Clay Edwards Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show here on WYAB. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Burgers Blues Barbecue. Get over there for lunch today right in the Flowood location. Go out and check it out, man. To me, it's the coolest of all three locations. It's got a smaller patio, but it's got the bars like horseshoe shaped, and they can open and close the garage door there. So if you want to sit inside at the bar, you can sit inside. If you want to sit outside, you can sit outside. Today's probably an inside day. If you like air conditioning like I do, probably an inside day. But get by there, check out all of the great plate lunch specials 5 days a week at all three locations. And, of course, always try one of their award-winning burgers. The Smash Burger is my personal favorite, and I like to get it fixed how I like to fix it. But it starts with a basic smash burger, and we start adding stuff from there. I turn a $10 smash burger into a $20 smash burger by the time I get all the toppings that I want on it. But, hey, that's life. Get by there. Try them today. Don't forget they take care of all your catering needs from 5 to 5,000 people, as well as they have 2 food trucks for all your special events. BurgersBlues.com for more information. All right, here in the studio, we've got Russ Latino, MagnoliaTribune.com. We've got Shaun Yurtkuran, MagnoliaTribune.com.
Sean's done some pieces for us.
Sean has.
There you go.
Sean, I've read them all. Great work, man. Great addition to the team over there. I want to play something here real quick because this is what I really enjoy is mocking and memeing the left and the left-wing media.
Hell you say.
This is really what I cut my teeth doing here. Well, let's listen to Joe Scarborough in his own words.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now. He's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years.
By the way, he's talking about Joe Biden, not Donald Trump.
I figured that one.
And, I don't know if people know this or not. Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, I don't really care. Start your tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
God, I love it. I could listen to that all day.
When was that? What is that from? Just like a month ago?
Super Tuesday.
Super Tuesday?
So March 5th.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Not too long ago.
Wow. Well, I don't know. In Biden years, he's like dog years at this point, right? He's aging that rapidly.
It is just incredible, though. The smarminess of it, the certainty of what he's saying there. While he regularly talks to Biden, the New York Times has reported that they're very close. Mm-hmm. He's got to know what the faculties of the president actually are. Yeah. And he's out there looking people in the eye saying, F you if you can't handle this truth. He's the best he's ever been. And then what happens after the debate on Thursday? He comes out Friday and basically calls for the president to step down. Oh, but then somebody slaps his hand, and on Saturday he takes to Twitter, or X, formerly Twitter, and basically says, well, my wife tells me that I was wrong and she's right. Biden's still good.
I mean, she's got his sack in the purse. I mean, it's like clip. I mean, my goodness.
Russ, you point out in your article, the New York Times, your article this morning, the held on June 21st, which is my birthday, which is a week ago, actually, and June 28th. And they have two articles. One's about how misleading videos are trailing Biden as he battles age doubts. A flurry of recent clips, many of them edited or lacking context, laid bare a major challenge for the president as he tries to persuade voters he has the energy for a second term. And then you got a week later, on June 28th, it's frightening Democratic voters worried by Biden's struggles in debate, like a week later. This is the change in narrative.
Well, I mean, this has been the trend all along, right? It's like it reminds me a lot of the Hunter Biden laptop story, where for months and candidly years, the official media narrative was the laptop's not real, this is Russian disinformation, yada, yada, yada.
Sure.
And now when it's painfully evident that the laptop was real and that they lied for months and years, they'll come out and admit it, but it's almost like, hey, guys, look what we discovered. That thing that you've been saying all along is true, that we've been making fun of you for? You were right. But we discovered it.
Yeah.
You know?
We just figured it out.
Yeah.
Like none of that ever happened until it all started today. You know, when they discovered it, come to find out, the 51 intelligence agents were all wrong.
Well, like Robert Hur deserves an apology, right? The DOJ special counsel that wrote the report on Biden that essentially pointed out the fact that he's a nice elderly old guy that has memory problems, and he got excoriated in the media, right? Everybody came out and said he was a Republican hack and a biased guy and he crossed the line and all this stuff. He told the truth. But for months, the official line was, well, behind closed doors, Biden is awesome, right? Sharp as a tack, vigorous, runs circles around the staff. And then people got to see with their own eyes on Thursday night, and suddenly they couldn't say that anymore.
And if y'all remember, the Wall Street, I think Clay and I discussed it on this show, the Wall Street Journal ran a report about this about 3 weeks ago, and it was a pretty big, deep dive into Biden's behavior behind closed doors. And it was from, Republicans and Democrats. And they'd spoken, several Democrats, Republicans they had spoken to were Mike Johnson and Kevin McCarthy, who were not, their statements were not being, I don't think they were being biased. They were just saying, look, there's a problem here. It sounded very candid to me. Not like they were doing a hit piece on Biden. They had interviewed, and everybody that came out, and of course, I was watching it on CNN. They're like, no, this can't be true. This is not right. This is unfair reporting from the Wall Street Journal. And this was like 2 weeks ago, I think, about 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, here's a just a little snippet from that New York Post story yesterday, and it says, several reporters have alleged that Biden's campaign officials have sought to dissuade them from talking with rally attendees who were questioning the wisdom of having him as nominee. So basically, after people go to these rallies and they hear him and they see him make these gaffes, the campaign is asking the media, and they're clearly complicit with their request, to not interview people about it. It's like, hey, just don't pay any attention to that. Don't talk to people about that. It's just like, when did the media get so entrenched with the Democrat Party that they can't even be negative about the guy? And I'm stuttering a little bit here because I want to cuss, and I'm just having to bite my tongue. So I do apologize, but it's just mind-boggling to me that we can't get any fair coverage of Joe Biden until after that debate debacle, when they know they've been running cover for him. It's like in the first hour I said, it's like a bunch of NPC bots in video games. They got their upload, and they all came out the door simultaneously. Same thing. The cover of Time magazine the very next day, all of it. This is orchestrated. This was not organic. How did we get to this point?
It strikes me that there was this moment of panic on Thursday and Friday, and panic is a loose word. I don't think it was a surprise to them. I think it was more the rest of the world knows this, so we can't keep saying what we've been saying, right? We've got to come out and be truthful. And then, though, by Saturday it seemed like the wagons were getting circled again, and it went from, oh my gosh, we've got to replace him, to the new memo being, it was a cold, he doesn't perform well at night, it was an off day, he was over-prepared.
Over-prepared was my favorite.
Well, anybody with eyes watching that recognizes that there is a mental faculty struggle going on. And, you heard people say things like, well, Obama had a bad debate night against Mitt Romney, or Bush had a bad debate night, or think about Ronald Reagan and the questions that were raised about his age. You know what didn't happen after any of those debates? Nobody came out and called for those people to step down.
And they also killed it in the second debates after that. Reagan, that second debate was the one that won the presidency. They say won the presidency for him. I know it was a landslide at that point, but it was really a big deal.
Well, I mean, Reagan got questioned on his age and had one of the best debate lines of all time, right? That he wouldn't use the youth and inexperience of his opponent against him. And it was like, all right, we're going to shut up and quit asking him questions about his age.
Oh, I'm talking about the 80 debate, but you're talking about 84.
84, yeah.
In 80 debate, like the second, he had a bad first debate against Carter, but his second debate is what really solidified it for him. It's, everything I've read about that. And then Obama, it was a horrible first debate. But like you're saying, nobody was like, "Oh, Barack needs to get off the ticket right now." And then he came up and he had a great second debate, and he won pretty well. So I mean, yeah, they're apples and oranges. It's not the same comparison.
So here's what I'd say about the media, because I is one. Two, I would say that I think the media has a very clear job to hold politicians accountable, and that's Republicans and Democrats. And so, at some level, the what the media does with respect to Trump is their job, right? It's their job to point out fallacies and arguments and misstatements and all that sort of thing. The problem that occurs is when it's selective, right? If you're engaged in selective accountability, then what you're really engaged in is advocacy. And I think the beef that a lot of the American public has with traditional mainstream media is that it's willing to hold certain people accountable, strenuously, and other people they behave like Pravda. Right, they're effectively coming at and operating as a defense mechanism, which is largely what they did with President Biden up until this debate. Is they kept gaslighting. There was a months long gaslighting campaign to tell people not to trust their eyes and ears, to call everything that questioned Biden's capacity a cheap fake or some sort of Republican propaganda. And at this point, it's impossible for people not to see it with their eyes and ears.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back with Russ Latino Shaun Yurtkuran. This is the Clay Edwards Show. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. We're live here on 103.9 FM, WYAB. Guys, get over there to Men's Health of Mississippi. Get your testosterone screening for free. That's right. We're going to hook you up with a free testosterone screening. Are you suffering from lack of muscles, sleeping bad, low sex drive, depression? It could absolutely be low testosterone that are causing those ails. Get by there, see them today, get a free testosterone screening on the house from the Clay Edwards Show and Men's Health Mississippi, located right there in Madison, Mississippi. You can check them out online at menshealthms.com. That's menshealthms.com. If you show up over there today, you may see me there. I'll be swinging by there when I leave the studio here. Get my little twice yearly checkup.
Oh, nice. Nice. I gotta call them too to get my re-up. I was just thinking about this morning. Scott, if you're listening, just do my prescription re-up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's Men's Health Mississippi. They way more than just a testosterone clinic too. By the way, it is a rejuvenation place for anti-aging, I guess is the technical term for it. But man, they can definitely help you along if you're struggling as you get a little bit older, as I am. All right, man, we got Russ Latino here in the studio with us, Magnolia Tribune.com. Shifting gears a little bit, Russ, the presidential immunity decision from the SCOTUS is supposed to come down this morning. Well, let's just play and pretend that we know the answer and that they're going to say that the president has immunity. How does this play out in real world for Trump? Because that's what this is about.
Yeah, so I would be very, very surprised if they come out and say there's absolute immunity attached to the presidency, which is what President Trump has argued for. In fact, I think there could be near unanimity against the idea of absolute immunity. But what you're going to see probably is a parsing, and Shaun and I were talking about this off air a little bit, a parsing between what are official acts of the presidency, where immunity will attach, and private acts done by a president, where immunity probably will not attach. And what will matter an awful lot is how they define what is an official act versus a private act. And candidly, what's going to probably happen is they're going to offer those definitions or some context between official and private acts, and they're going to kick it to the lower courts and say, based on these definitions, you decide whether or not the underlying conduct that he's accused of was an official act or a private act. As an example, on January 6th, when he does his speech that a lot of folks have pointed to as sort of the rally moment for the taking over the Capitol, I think you could very easily see that being defined as a private act and not an official act of the presidency. And so to the extent that that President Trump is hoping that this ruling will end all of the prosecutions that are presently against him, I don't think that's likely.
Gotcha. And the
find
me the vote stuff and all that.
Yeah, and so I mean, Sean, what do you think? I mean, you as a lawyer too.
No, I would think. I agree in terms of like the differences are his acts as a candidate, a private act, which I think they probably are. I mean, they're definitely a private act, and were those acts considered private and not official? Now, I think the murky area there gets. His argument is that he was trying to ensure election integrity, which is a function of the executive. So I think that's where you kind of get like that's the Trump campaign or Trump's argument. So I do think, though, I agree with you. I think the Supreme Court is going to say that his acts as a candidate are private and that he's not immune on those things, but he would be immune in terms of official acts. Now, of course, this is the example that we've all heard. The President of the United States wants to use SEAL Team 6 to assassinate the FBI director. Is he immune from prosecution from that? Which seems like it would be outside of his official acts doing something like that. So, well, maybe it isn't his official acts. I don't know, but it sounds like a private act to benefit him.
There's like an official act to benefit the country right now, but
no, you didn't say that.
Like all kidding aside, look, as far as the Trump stuff goes, I don't think that what he said. I don't think anything he did was criminal. I think. In the Atlanta thing, the Georgia deal, find me the votes. I think that's a figure of speech.
Yeah,
and then we can debate and argue all day about the January 6th stuff. I don't think Trump enticed the crowd. I mean, if you're that easily enticed, you probably shouldn't go out to rallies. Mm-hmm. I don't think he did anything criminal in either aspect.
Yeah, I know, but I think that's different from whether if he did do so, if it is criminal up to a jury.
Sure, I'm not disagreeing there. I'm just making the broader point.
No, I understand what you're saying. Is that a private or an official act? And it seems to me that and Russ is saying too, that's a private act. It's not an act of the executive. It's a private act as part of the Trump campaign.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between can you stand trial for this and are you guilty of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. For sure. Oh, let's see here. Circling back to the debate stuff. I made too many notes last night. Now I have to read my notes. Our favorite Bill O'Reilly comes out, and he says that he's reporting that Biden is going to step down. They're kind of circling the wagons right now. Have you seen that report, Russ?
Yeah. In fact, I think Sean texted me that yesterday. I don't know where Bill O'Reilly's getting his information from, right? I mean, that almost feels like one of those kind of things where you take a shot in the dark, and if it turns out you're right, you get to say, hey, look, I was the first one to say this.
Yeah.
And if not, you're Bill O'Reilly, and at this point you're not on any major cable news network, and the damage is not great to you. Yeah, I mean, everything that I've read from what came out of the meeting at Camp David has been that the family was very encouraging of President Biden to stay in the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think about it this way, like there's this whole group of people, and we're talking about hundreds of people that are in the president's circle, right, that are dependent on him being president. And they lose their status, they lose their roles, they lose cushy relationships if he's no longer the president. And so everybody in that inner circle, and I've seen this on a smaller scale in campaigns before, when it made sense for somebody to do the magnanimous thing and step out or step down or concede an election, and everybody around them who was a hanger-on, who was making money, said, no, you can't, keep fighting, even though it was not in the best interest of the candidate.
Yeah.
I think the same sort of thing is happening on a much more grandiose scale right now with Biden, where you've got hundreds of people probably saying, whatever we do, we can't let this guy step away because he is quite literally our meal ticket.
Well, we were talking during the break about that was it WAPO article?
Yeah,
sure. About the WAPO, where they had a big Democrat call, mm-hmm. and a bunch of the down ticket folks are upset that they weren't even allowed to ask questions, chime in, anything. And I had not thought about it really. Like, what does this do down ticket with or without Biden on there? I mean, it's got to wreck some of that potentially, because there were some people were suggesting that the Democrats could take over the Senate again. If
the House.
The House. They could take over the House. And if you're a Republican, like, hey, this is great, but I don't know. I'm so conflicted on what's best. Is Biden on the ticket best for a Trump win, or is a late swap and mass confusion best? I'm very conflicted on this whole thing. And then the down ticket debacle is a whole nother story.
Yeah, I think the map initially I'm just saying pre-debate. Let's assume we're talking about pre-debate. The map in the House favored the Democrats. The map in the Senate favored the Republicans. I think we're kind of looking at that route, that the Democrats may retake the House and the Republicans may retake the Senate. Am I right about that, Russ, or is that the way?
Yeah, I think a lot of people believe that. Yeah.
That's kind of the way this is going, because the Democrats are losing a Senate seat with Joe Manchin, which is going to go Republican. The race in Arizona is probably between Gallego and Kerry Lake. Is probably a toss-up at this point, I would say. I think Gallego might be a few points ahead. I can't remember the last time I looked at that. And there's a few John Tester's race in Montana is kind of competitive over there. So it's a good likelihood the Republicans will take the Senate, I think you can say at this point. But
not to be the proverbial wet blanket, because I have the tendency of doing that. You will remember a couple of years ago, the prediction was that Republicans were going to take the House of Representatives in a red wave.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that did not occur. For all of the talk of the fact that Biden's approval rating is 35% now, for all of the talk of the fact that 72% of Americans don't believe that he has the mental faculties to be president, he's still polling neck and neck with Donald Trump. This race is going to come down to, and at some level the down ticket race is going to come down to, just how much does a segment of our country hate Donald Trump? Do they hate Donald Trump more than they care about whether or not the guy who's in the White House has mental faculties? And if the answer to that question is yes, Joe Biden could still beat Donald Trump. And if the answer to that question is yes, then you could see some of these down ticket races not going the way that are projected. And so I think if you're a conservative or a Republican, what you've got to do is not get too giddy about this moment. Be sober-minded in the way that you approach these races and not assume that it's a shoo-in.
I despise Joe Biden, and I want to see all the worst for him. And that if a public humiliation and him stepping down is the worst-case scenario, I'm all for that. But I understand, too, that him staying on that ticket is our best chance of winning the White House.
that would be my next question, Russ. What do you think about a possible Democratic replacement? And I know that's so hard to predict about how that's going to play out in terms of, does it fracture the party? Does it do this? But kind of going with you're saying that there's still a huge segment of the population that hates Donald Trump and will vote for literally Joe Biden's head, as Bill Maher says, in a formaldehyde jar over Trump. So does a younger Democrat beat Trump easily, I would say, or do you think it's about the same?
Try to keep it about 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I would say that a younger Democrat starts with an advantage over President Trump. The question is, once the Oppo research gets done and they start hitting him, does it stay that way?
Okay.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the Clay Edwards Show. We got about a minute here left of Russ Latino and Shaun Yurtkuran on today's show. Don't forget, Chip Matthews' show is up next from 9 to 10. Russ, thank you for coming out. Kind of give you the mic to close us out here. What do you think ends up happening? Biden stays on the ticket?
I think odds are at this point that Biden stays on the ticket based on what we heard his family was suggesting. Unlike you, I actually do feel bad for him, though.
Yeah.
I think he's been put in a situation that no human being should be put in. It's borderline elder abuse based on what we've seen. And so on a human level, I actually do feel bad for him.
I mean, I guess that's where we'll just have to agree to disagree, because he's the president of the United States. I really don't feel too sorry for him. It's not really abuse to be made president, to be forced to be president, to be forced to do the job you wanted to do.
Well, I would say, I was telling the first hour, my sister's head of a home health agency, and she called me on Sunday. She hates Trump. She's like, what Jill Biden is doing to this man is elder abuse. And I've seen this. It's just a horrible thing.
All right, we're out. Thank y'all.